Heyo, welcome to the Industry Idiots podcast. Today with Sven.
Hello, new episode, and also with a guest.
Yes, please welcome full-time Viking, gifted woodcarver, professional level and game designer, and now associate world director from Ubisoft Stockholm, Jeff Gagné. Woo!
Hello. That was one introduction. I wasn't expecting that. Beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, welcome. Welcome in our, remote German hangout.
Happy to be here.
How is life? How are you doing in over in Stockholm, right?
Life is great. A bit tired, lots of work and life in general, and it's getting darker and darker in Sweden, so less D vitamin for us. So it's the time to take the supplement. But yeah, life is great. Life is great in Sweden, so I can't say the opposite.
How about you, Sven?
Oh, good. I'm on vacation mode, so been relaxing for a week now, recharging batteries, and couldn't be better.
Hence the difference in microphone quality,
I guess.
How is living in Europe compared to North America, Jeff, especially Canada?
Well, I could not that's a thing, right? I can't really. This is a wild question. I can't say to Europe in general. At least I live in Sweden, so I would compare Sweden to Canada, not Europe. I don't know. It's probably different in Spain or in whatever. In Greece.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. Like I moved from a cold country to a cold country. It's like it's not that different. I would say Canada is fairly not identical, but it's like there's so much stuff in common between Canada and Sweden. At least my part of Canada. Canada is so big. I can't talk for all Canadian either, because the East Coast is not like the West Coast or the Central and the North and whatever. But it's I don't know, it's smoother how Swedish people live. There's a word called there's a word that is named like whatever, called name whatever, lagom, Lagom.
Is that the minimalism?
No, it's not that. We can't really. There's no word. You can't translate that thing, but it's basically you could say that it's not too much, not too little, just the right amount. That's the definition. And coming from Canada, which is fairly like the United States to some extent, it's like you always have to push and give your 110% and like all the things, and like everything is so fast. And here it's more like super smooth, and at work people aren't expecting you to do 110%. They're expecting you to do 100%, and it's like everything is it's really hard to explain. It's just smoother, less stressful. People are more understanding if you're sick, for example, or if you if people like they go on parental leave or something like that. Like back home it's like, oh, will I have my job when I come back? Will I be pushed to the side, for example? Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's way more expensive. Holy. Yes, it's
life in Europe. In Sweden, you mean?
Oh man, it's amazing. It's so expensive compared to Quebec, where I'm from. It's crazy. It's the housing. Like there's literally two things. I found two things that are less expensive, and it's cell phone contract and internet contract. That's the only two things that are not more expensive. I'm pretty sure everything else is more expensive.
I think there's this one top 10 city list of Europe, which one's the most expensive one, in Stockholm, I think, even tops that list. And the next one is to Vienna, and then there's a long list until the third spot comes. So
no, exactly. It's just so crazy. But like salaries are, I think, at least I'm able to live properly. Salaries are in par with that. But yeah, cost of living is pretty expensive, but life is really good. We pay a lot of taxes. But at home in Quebec, we were also paying a lot of taxes. The difference is that here I see where the money goes. Like I know where, like I arrived here and I saw so many parks and bridges and whatever built. The roads are beautiful. Healthcare system, name it. Like everything is nice, basically. So like when I always say to people when they ask me this question, I'm like, basically, Sweden is a smaller, better, more expensive Canada.
I love that comparison.
That's high praise. Yeah.
For me, at least. Political view fits also. It's really, Sweden is fairly, not exactly socialist, but, it's about the people and
It's fairly progressive.
the greater good of everyone. So, yeah, super progressive. So, fits for me, at least.
And I feel like mental health is respected more in
Yes.
just generally in Europe, in Germany as well, in Sweden versus America.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't seem to be as taboo as back home. I have a couple of horror stories, but like friends, anxiety in the industry and stuff, and just take 2 days and come back, like something like this. Like you go to the doctor, and like if the doctor is like, especially if the doctor is a man, but if they're like above like 50 years old, well, they will probably ask you to go take some ibuprofen, take a day of sleep, and go back to work in 2 days. Even though it's like deep anxiety, depression, name it, like, oh, you're fine. It's just like, I'll pass, because
just sleep it off.
in their head it doesn't exist. It's just like mental health is not that doesn't exist. That's like man up, like they say. So yeah, it's way more. It's way better here.
Yeah, in Germany as well. I mean, you can go to the doc, and your employer will understand as well. Which is something we discussed in the last episode where we had Lena Falkenhagen here, where we talked about unions and game and workers' rights and that kind of stuff. And a big point of that was also that in Europe, that your mental health and you're not being overworked actively or in this like passive state, But yeah, super cool.
No, exactly.
Yeah, the well-being and happiness of the workers being taken into account. So she said one very pregnant word, which was like happy developers make better games. So I guess that's the same case.
I absolutely agree. And when I was at DICE, it's interesting because EA, if you talk about EA on the internet, but in the inside, it was so good. I seriously, like in 15 years, I was so well treated as an employee. It was really, really awesome. I wasn't expecting that. Seriously, it was really good. And is it EA? Is it DICE? I don't know. For me, it's the same company, but the fact that I was in Sweden also, it's all rated to that.
I think the general, like the gamers and consumers out there who get mad at EA and DICE, I think they're not really mad at developers, right? They're more mad at marketing decisions.
Yes, it's always the case. I would assume, at least most of the time, gamer are mad at management,
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny now because I was on the AC Assassin's Creed Sisterhood Discord not so long ago. I was having this discussion with fans of the franchise and stuff, and I was basically saying that like you can always blame the management. Basically, don't blame the devs. But now I'm a manager, so it's kind of suck. And we're like, oh, all right, so we can blame Jeff for everything now.
Who can we blame now? Marketing. Let's just push it to marketing.
My poor friend in marketing.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the AC Sisterhood thing? I've seen it a couple times on Twitter.
It's basically it came from what I understood, at least it came from the stuff that happened at Ubisoft, with all the sexual harassment and everything like that, and it was basically to empower women in game for the game devs, also in terms of protagonists, basically. Because there was all these news that Cassandra in ACODC was supposed to be the only character, but Ubisoft management said women don't sell. So all of that, basically, those women created that thing, and it's a really loving community. It's super cool. Everything in there is super, super top, and there's quite a lot of people now. Obviously, it's centered in Assassin's Creed, but on another extent on Ubisoft games in general, and then to the other extent into everything that is related to women game devs, women in games, and women in general.
Oh, that sounds super cool.
Really cool place. Yeah.
It's kind of cool giving this is like this flavorful face as well, not just being a union or like a collective of some kind, but also giving it this narrative aspect of this sisterhood, and this, it's really cool. It makes you want to be part of it as well.
Yeah, it's super nice, and it's not like if there was women in the brotherhood, like it's not. Obviously, there's men in the sisterhood. It's not. It's once again, it's not against men.
Exactly.
It's to empower women. Yeah. It's not against. Yeah.
It's the same with we don't want to get political, but it's the same problem that some people have with Black Lives Matter, right? Where they don't understand that this does not mean that all lives don't matter. It just means that these guys need help right now.
Yeah, it's like right now, talk about these guys. Right now we want to talk about the women in game dev. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Well, very cool to hear that there's a place for that now.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely something that should be everywhere. I mean, we have in Germany, like our indie studio, for example, we are part of Hier spielt Vielfalt, which is like a I don't know what it's like a union thing that you join, and then your studio is essentially required to uphold some, fair treatment or diversity treatment, progressive mindsets, all that kind of stuff. And I think more and more things like this should be developing in the future, especially with recent happenings.
Yeah, it's really cool to see from the outside, especially me coming from Canada and stuff. But like, there's all these cool things about Germany. It's like we have a lot of cool things in Sweden, but like Germany is fairly, and now you have I think the thing I saw not so long ago, like the thing with tax credit and stuff for the video game and the industry and whatever German government. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's like it seems to be super cool. And coming from Quebec, where this thing was implemented in 1998, and that's why Quebec and Montreal and all the other places there it's a pole in the industry now because of that. Basically, Ubisoft was like, oh yeah, interesting, And then when I was at Larian Studio, it was the same thing. When Sven, the CEO, decided he had the choice between Quebec, Toronto, Vancouver, and other places, and obviously the fact that there was like tax credit for the video game industry, that was a heavy weight on the balance to choose that place specifically, And I think that's also good for you guys. If you have that in Germany, there will be way, way, way more company that will come.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to us. There was absolutely nothing. Even when I started in 2005, it was fairly like not that big. It was bigger in Ubisoft in Montreal, basically. But then you have like, Jesus Christ, there's like, how many people at Ubisoft Montreal now? Like 4,000, 5,000, I think.
4,000.
And then you have like all the other companies, EA, Eidos, like name it, like all of them. And then in Quebec right now, we have obviously there's Ubisoft, but Larian arrived, and then Gearbox arrived, and we have all these.
And Cloud Chamber, isn't Cloud Chamber also in Canada? Half of it?
That is maybe, yes. And there's the new Stadia thing also. That is like a bunch of people from Ubisoft Montreal that I work with who are there. And others, like there's all these new things, because the moment you have one big company, there's like another one that come by, and another one, and another one, and another one, because they want to basically suck the pool of talent, That's what it is. That's literally what it is.
Thankfully, in Germany, it's also starting to pick up the pace in terms of companies starting up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think Ubisoft Düsseldorf and Crytek are still the biggest single individual sites where more than 300 developers are located. Everything else is significantly smaller. So.
But like this, how many people? It's kind of funny that I'm asking you this question, but like, how many people is there at Ubisoft Berlin?
I know that JD is growing the team, right? On Twitter, he's always about here are all our positions, please apply. And unfortunately, most of them are for associates or seniors.
Yeah.
But
he's like a recruiter. He's like a game designer. He was doing the same thing at DICE, and it was kind of funny when he moved before he announced that he moved to Ubisoft Berlin. He posted job opening for Ubisoft, and then people on Twitter reacted, oh, looks like he moved to Ubisoft. And I was kind of laughing because I knew that he was going to Ubisoft. We talked about it before, and he wanted to know because I obviously have quite a lot of experience at Ubisoft, and I was like, yeah, well, you gonna blew up your cover right there.
JD leaks.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's very helpful. He's a cool guy.
A really cool guy. Yes, really cool guy.
But to your question, no idea. Do you know, Sven, how many employees Blue Byte has, Ubisoft Berlin?
I would probably guess the last time I checked for the Wikipedia page was probably outdated by now. It was like around 120, I think.
Okay, I thought they were more than that. But yeah,
I guess they're heavily building up.
Well, they're growing hard.
because I remember Blue Byte being so like forever.
And they're working on like 7 projects collaboratively with the other Ubisoft studios, right?
At least, I'm sure. I don't know. Like that's the thing with Ubisoft. It's so big and there's so many companies. It's impossible to know whether the other company, like except if you like actively search for like what are the other project happening. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
You know, I like people were asking me question when Assassin's Creed Valhalla was announced. Like, oh my god, what is it? What is it? And I said, first I can tell you. Secondly, I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't seen anything more than you guys. I have never played anything. I don't know.
So you're watching the Ubisoft Forward yourself as well, with waiting anxiously for
Yes, I literally watched Ubisoft Forward like you guys, and I've learned all the new things. I was not aware. You know, I obviously my friends working on God and Monster back, Immortal Phoenix Rising. You know, I could have probably learned more if I was actively asking my friend, like, oh yeah, what's the new thing? You know, I just watched Ubisoft Forward, and I've learned the same thing as you at the same time as you.
And they also changed names, right? I forgot the name they had before.
Yes, God and Monsters.
Yeah, true. You just said it. Yeah.
And as I've learned, as the same thing as you probably last week, this was like a lawsuit from like Monster, the energy drink or something, or whatever.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Oh yeah, I read that today as well. That's outrageous. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
No.
Yes. I was like, what? Seriously? Man, not surprised.
Well, maybe they just saw the lawsuit and they were like, you know what? Even though we might win, it doesn't matter. Let's just change the name.
I don't know if it was a lawsuit or anything, but yeah, I mean, it's like, I remember when I was working on the Might and Magic Duel of Champion, and I was making all the cards and stuff, and I had like, I've learned that day that the Beholder is copyrighted by Wizard of the Coast.
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons.
Because I had a Beholder as a card, and the legal team were like, "Oh, you have to change the name." I was like, "Why?" Well, because it's copyrighted. Because they don't. Like, why would they fight to like I don't know how many millions to get that freaking name? That's fine. Just change the name to Evil Looking Eye or whatever. That's fine, you know. Yeah, that's like there's all these little things that you don't know, and thanks to the legal team because. There's a lot of stuff.
And most people don't know that this is one of your favorite games you've worked on, right?
Yes, it was so good. It was so good.
Can you tell us a little bit more about why do you love that so much? Because it is a different game than what you're usually doing, right?
Yes, and it's the only game I was really a game designer on also. I don't consider myself an amazing game designer. My field is level design, but it came out of nowhere. It was so weird. I was like, I don't remember exactly where I was at that time on which project, and basically a friend of mine was like, "Hey Jeff, do you want to work on a card game?" Because he knew that I played Magic the Gathering back in the days and stuff, and I was into board game and things. I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. And then it was like a series of whatever planets are aligned and stuff, and I was like, hey, Air's like design a card game for us, Jeff. And I was with another guy, a programmer, Guillaume, his name, and we had such a blast. That was so cool. Super small team, super like everyone in the project was so happy to be there. Every Friday it was spent to play the game. We literally had a physical game because we didn't have any. Like I don't remember exactly on what it was built, but whatever. We had nothing when we started the game. I literally had Excel sheets with cards. And then we were printing them and putting that on the plastic, and people were literally playing the game for real, physical. And like people were spending all their lunchtime to tweak their decks, and stuff, and playing with each other. And it was so good. It was so good. Like I never saw a team as hyped to work on a thing in my life. So it was really fun. It was really fun, and obviously creating a game from scratch and having all the possibilities that you want in a AAA company is like, I can't say that it happens to a lot of people.
It's crazy.
So especially that I was not a game director or anything, and I was intermediate at that time. I don't remember which year it was, but like I didn't have 15 years of experience or whatever like that, and it was super interesting to be like, yeah, just go for it, And then it got greenlit. I remember we presented the game to the Ubisoft editorial, the top management at Ubisoft, like via video conference, and we had the cards set up and things, and it lasted 30 minutes. They're like, hey, that sounds super cool. Let's go. Let's kick that shit. And,
let's do it.
Okay.
But it was still like a pre-existing IP when you had to design for it, right?
Yes, it was a pre-existing IP, but it was so it's like you have to create a card game in the Might and Magic universe. Okay, I have all the choice that I want.
Yeah,
I can do whatever I need, And then we were looking at a game, and I was like, oh yeah, what's the core? Obviously I played a ton of Heroes of Might and Magic back in my days. And I was like, okay, so what do we do? So we had the buildings, and we looked at other Might and Magic game that was released, like Clash of Heroes, I think that was the name, on Nintendo DS or whatever. And there was like all these placement of units. Oh yeah, we need that in the game, and things. And our game was obviously way more complex than other card games. And that's probably why people loved it. There was a lot of stuff to think about, and it wasn't that complicated. It was complex. There was depth and a thing. And then Hearthstone came, and the game died. Basically, that's literally what happened. We had the graph is like, and then Hearthstone crashed.
And Hearthstone had a similar origin story as you had, right? With Ben Brode. He was making some sort of iPad or iPhone card game. And then Blizzard was like, please do this game for us. And he's like, okay, but I've never worked in Unity or C# before. And then he just learned it on the job for a AAA card game.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
So yeah, it was nice. We had I don't know, I was on the project from the beginning to the release of the closed beta, I think, or something like that. Because obviously I was like, I want to be a level designer. So if I keep on working here as a game designer, I'm not moving my career. So I kind of I asked to leave the project basically. So then I went back on Assassin's Creed. But then I just looked at the project from the side, and when they announced that it was being sunset, basically, I was kind of sad. I was sad inside. I was kind of sad. It was my little baby. Like as a designer, never be in love or attached to your design. That's like the tip number one that I give to junior people. But for that specific thing, I was like, it's my little thing.
That's a lesson every designer learns the hard way. Once they've got their heart broken, for the 5th time over something that goes or changes, then they learn to adapt.
Absolutely.
I feel it being your baby, since you stated on your portfolio website that you created all the cards for the beta, right? Which is
all the
crazy.
Cards. Yeah, it's not that much when you think about it. It was like 200 something. I don't know. I didn't create it alone. Yes, I created all of them, but then it was a teamwork. Obviously, I just had the task to create all of them because the other guy was he was coder, but also sort of game designer, and we were working together. But I was mostly creating all of them. It was pretty cool, but the game that was released was really different than the game that we started at first, because we had stuff with so much numbers. It was at some point it was yeah, that's too much bookkeeping and things, and we had another design, and then I asked obviously the management to give me QA people as soon as possible. I wanted them to break the game, and it didn't took that much time to absolutely break everything. Because that's what they're good at, and that's perfect. That's why I wanted them. And we end up creating new gameplay mechanics.
Which is also highly underrated QAing, or good QAing, right?
Yeah, I just saw a post earlier from, what's his name, Ramiro, I think. Ramiro Cibrian, or however you pronounce that. He's a supervisor at Deep Silver. I know we follow each other, and he literally posted something about QA, because people are oh, that game is so buggy, QA made a shit job. And it's like, no, that's not. Like, I started as a QA, I know what it is. And no, that's literally not the case. There's a big chance that QA have done really good job. But now as a dev, I also know, like, yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, fuck that bug.
Oh, and
I don't want to fix that thing, or like, you know, and then you have to ship, at some point you have to ship the game, and then there's the project closer, and they're like, okay, no time for that, scrap that thing, it's not important enough. But then you release the game and there's millions of people playing it, and
no way you can cover it.
Well, yeah, exactly. You never have a team of 1 million players. You know, that's why early access is so important now for many games and all these things, because you have like all the people
it's free QA
playtesting your game basically.
Yeah.
And it helps so much. But yeah, sad life for the QA people. They're misunderstood so much.
It's like when people say that or complain that the developers are lazy because this hasn't been fixed or this feature isn't. It's not because they're lazy. It's never because they're lazy. It's because there was no time, there was no budget. It's never like a conscious choice of being lazy.
I think that people don't seem to understand is that like probably to 99.9 periodic %, every game dev want to make the best game ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like I worked on games that we had like, you know, at the beginning of my career, like Game Boy Advance game and Nintendo DS or PSP and stuff. And it's like, oh, you have 4 months of production. It's like, okay, gotta make 2, you know? And it's like, obviously now in the AAA things, it's really different. But it's like, yeah, no, devs are not really lazy. It's so much more complicated than being lazy.
I mean, we're so passionate about our craft. We get into heated fights, right? In fights in quotation marks in meetings. And we love features so much that we defend them over months to get them into the game, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially as designers.
No one is lazy. Yeah, especially the designers, because that's all we do, right? These are our babies. And as you said, we don't want that, of course. We try to actively fight this urge and feeling, but you never fully can.
No, exactly. It's like it all depends on what it is, but yes, it's you want your ideas in the game. Obviously, you want to be able to say like, "Hey, that thing, that's me." You know, that's that cool part. That's me. Whatever that is. Like my friend who wrote the article from my former colleague on Immortal Phoenix Rising about the accessibility. You know, well, that's his baby. You know, all the accessibility, the option that he added and stuff and whatever for the game. It seems the game's not released, but at least from the article, I mean, yeah, cool. Like whatever he was able to push to put in the game, well done to him. You know,
because you have I have a question, because you have so many games out there already in your portfolio. Do you have one of the games that like you feel like you would love to continue work on, even though it's already released? Or is it something that you think like, oh, with even more polish, we could have made an even bigger splash or something like that?
Well, even more polish, all of them, obviously. But I don't think there's a game I would love to have worked more on it, because every time I ship a game, I'm so happy it's over. When you've been working in a game for 3 years, it's just like, you know, I've never been from the start to finish on a game, because at least at Ubisoft Quebec at home, whenever a new thing was starting, I was brought from the other project to the new one because they wanted my whatever experience, I guess. But Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you know, I worked from the beginning all the way to when I left Ubisoft, basically, which was beta. So the game was fairly pretty done to some extent. But yeah, I don't think I would have loved to keep on working in the game. Now that I'm just thinking about all of them.
Prince of Persia, maybe?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I would not have loved to work more on it, because when the game on the Wii basically was on a really, really good state, my lead back then, Marc Alexis, is the executive producer. He was creative director on AC Syndicate. Yeah. He was like, okay, Jeff, that's good enough. Go on the PSP version now. You have to fix shit. So,
bye.
No, but I was sent there as a one-man army, fix all the things stuff. It was my favorite production of all time. It was just so good. I would have loved to be. I still remember to this day. I would have loved to be able to go back after all I've learned in 3 years working on that to be able to like redo what I've done, because I worked on a lot of things, but especially the first part of the game. I would have loved to redo the level design there, make it way better. I strongly believe we had amazing level design in this game, but since like I started as a level designer really as my second project on that game, and I started making the beginning of the game. So after the production, like after 2.5 years, I would have loved to go back and be like, all right, I fixed that shit because I've learned so much now. But no, when I'm done with a game, I'm done with the game. I don't want to hear about it again.
Did you actively try to transition into level design, or was it something you more like stumbled into?
First, I had no idea what level design was. And I was basically, it's like, that's the thing. There's so many people who ask about my journey, and I tell them, and I'm like, you can't probably do that because it was so much different back then. So like 2005 started QA, 2006. There's my first lead, Sonny, his name. And we were getting shit faced in a bar, and we're talking and stuff. And he's like, "Hey, I'm planning to build a team of level designers, and I think you could be a good fit." And I'm like, "What is this? What is level design?" And I had no idea.
and hired.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we talked a bit, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can be paid to make that." Because like I used to make maps and stuff in Warcraft 2 editor and Heroes of Might and Magic and things. And I was always the map guy in my friends, with my friend group. Yeah. So we talked a little bit, and then we had an interview, what I call a corner of a table interview, and I got hired. He really wanted me. Like I literally showed him the world I created in Dungeon and Dragon, but because I was gaming back then, and that's it. That's how I became a level designer. I was like, it looks pretty cool,
Okay.
My career started the same thing. I had no idea that you couldn't be paid to play games as a tester,
All right. I'm remembering that. Next application, I'm just going to send in all my DM material, all my maps that I've ever made, and there we go.
I mean, my interview with Sven at Larian Studios was almost the same thing. It lasted 55 minutes. I was talking with him. The first 10 minutes we had talked about me and what I like and stuff and whatever. And then the 45 other minutes we just talked about Dungeons and Dragons. That was my interview. And then after that, he was like, when do you want to start? We started about that.
I mean, for a game that's so heavily inspired on D&D.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, what's your favorite system? I was like, right now I'm DMing Pathfinder and it's really cool, It was like, what system have you played? It was like, I haven't played like freaking Final Fantasy role-playing game and stuff. It's like homemade by people around the internet. And it was like, that's it. So Dungeon and Dragon, guys. But for me, like, we kind of joking about that, but like, I've seen so many portfolios, and that's the thing I always say to people. It's like you need like first you need to show that you're obviously awesome, but like you need a little spark, because if you show like a generic third person or generic first person shooter in Unreal, like we've seen that a little bit,
Yeah, something special.
Like the other day I saw a guy with a Grim Dawn map, and then I saw someone with I think it was a StarCraft map. And then someone is like, I was like, yes, finally, a little thing. I don't care if it's good or bad, at least it's just different. So Dungeon and Dragon, that works.
It's also interesting with a level design profession itself that it became the thing that you can actually like study for university. And then 15 years ago, you were kind of sliding in there while having done maps and doing mods and stuff like that. Now you are doing a focused 3-year apprenticeship almost to get into that job.
Yeah, there was at least where I come from, there was no school back then for that in 2005. At least not in my own town. So I was like, I really hate the word luck, but I was lucky to be there at the right time. Like when my cousin was like, "Hey, there's this company called Ubisoft hiring tester." I was like, "What's Ubisoft? And what's a tester?" And
wait, I can play video games for money?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And then I've learned that testers are not playing game.
Oh.
Yeah,
get that off your mind, gamers. Testers are not gaming.
Oh my god.
Yeah, in my head that was that. Oh wow, I really hated the job, but still, that's why I'm here now. It's because of that job that I had.
And now you mean like associate world director? What is that even compared to?
Yeah,
level
pretty
design?
much.
It's such a fancy title itself. It always sounds impressive.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like my at Ubisoft Stockholm, I'm a supervisor, but like supervisor is like. So when you see associate director, people are like, okay, now I understand. But yeah, basically, I'm not the world director, but I'm a director on the piece of content that I own, which is quite a lot that I can't talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm basically part of the systems of the worlds. So whatever that is related to that, if I take, I don't know what game I could take. Let's take Division, for example. Like everything that's happening in the world, all the encounter that you have and all these things, I don't know, who you unlock where and where you sell this and that, all these world system and the deer that spawn and the dogs. And, I can go on with all this vast umbrella of things that happen in the game, basically in the world.
So basically everything that makes the world alive and dynamic.
Yes, exactly. Basically, if I was on the Division with my current role, I would do that. And then the other associate director who works with me he's the one making sure that the world is how it looks. Like the classic world design stuff, basically. Like here I want a tower, and here I want whatever, and here I want the White House, and here I want whatever. In the Divisions, that's basically the world, the associate world director. So that's sort of my job.
Would you say that like all the world design positions at Ubisoft are more level design heavy than they are game or narrative design heavy? Or
it kind of always sounds like a mix of all of them, right?
It depends on the project. That's the thing. Obviously, when I was in Prince of Persia, it was like the classic level design job. But then I transitioned into world design when I started working in Assassin's Creed, and it was more about level design, world design. And when you work in Assassin's Creed, we create a world, and then the narrative kind of create a narrative on top of that. At Larian, it was more like side to side, but I was really world designer. I was not even like creating an encounter or anything. I was like almost an environment artist at some point because I was placing grass and texture and stuff and whatever. It was okay. Yeah, at Ubisoft, it's like it all depends on the project, but like at least in Assassin's Creed, you have the world team and you have the mission team. And the mission team, they do the quests, basically. And they're really into narrative. In world design, we don't really care about narrative because we have to create the world. So when I was in Syndicate, we had all these maps of London and stuff, and we were making London. We didn't care about like who was supposed to be assassinated where. But then if the mission team was like, oh yeah, but we need this specific building there that would be cool. Like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, this specific building there. And we were placing the building there. It was not them, But then they were placing all the things inside. So that's how it's basically split, I would say.
So what approach do you prefer when it comes to world design? Do you more go into the direction of Death Stranding, vast, almost empty, but huge and beautiful open worlds? Or do you prefer like the Wizard's Chamber approach where you have this like as tight as possible, but fully packed with crazy interactive and cool things to find?
Well, it changed through the years, I guess. Sometimes like that's super funny because I'm like, I would love to work on a game like Uncharted or The Last of Us. It's like it's linear. It's like let's go and you make these little tweaks, and stuff like this. The stuff that basically Max Spears always posts on Twitter, about like these little cover placement and stuff and whatever. It's super cool. Obviously, you can do that in open world, but like on a game like Assassin's Creed, yeah, okay, the guy can literally arrive from everywhere. So so I'm more. I love world design way more when it's vast and open and all these things. I find it more. I know it's you don't have to manually tweak everything. That everything has to be perfect. When we were in Assassin's Creed, it was the same thing. We were basically every single section. When it was manually crafted everywhere, almost it's not the case anymore. Obviously, the world's too big. But like when we were crafting like the backyard of the place, for example, in world design, it was like, okay, let's take 3 angles that we assume that the player might arrive from here and then make it look like crazy. Because we were doing something called fantastic realism. That's a stupid name that we had. That was basically everything is obviously based in reality, but it's really video game tweaked to look so good. Like when you go through that door, the tree is placed to have the moon, the light come in
Yeah.
and your face, and the flower is like pointing in that direction, and you see the little.
Careful composition everywhere.
Yes, exactly. So that's why the stupid name was invented. But yeah, I really prefer world design for that. It's more about the macro instead of the micro, which is kind of cool. I love macro stuff. I'm not a micromanager, and it's like I want to create big things,
Sven, aren't you heavily into spatial cinematography as well?
I mean, for linear games for sure, but as Jeff just mentioned, you can't account for all the different angles and this 360 approach from the players. So, I mean, you can try to do it, but I guess that's a lot of work put into a very specific thing.
Yeah.
I imagine it's always, especially for open world designs, if you start from a fresh project, could be quite daunting to have like somebody go, okay, Jeff, you're the world director now, design our whole world. And then, okay, then I would be sitting in front of the task like, okay, where do I start? What the hell? So it could be quite daunting.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I obviously haven't worked on a thing that is not based on anything. I would not say it was easy, but it was way easier to create London in AC Syndicate because obviously we had all the maps and the photography was invented, 10 or 20 years after our game was set in. So it was still like, obviously stuff changed in 20 years, but it's not like there was different things. London was looking pretty much the same 20 years before. So we had like all these photography and all these maps created and stuff and whatever. So the hard part was to cram it in the game because we were not able to make London as London is. It's obviously way too big to fit back then in the game. So we had to cram London in 3 by 2 kilometers. That was the hard part. Like, what do we keep? What do we remove? And it's the thing, my former blog that is dead now. But like when I wrote about radial level design, that was the thing basically. Like, the importance of the landmarks, and we build around them, and everything in between is just fillers, and we don't care. The streets of St. Paul has to look exactly like St. Paul. But then when you have to create something that doesn't exist, that's like, I'm just thinking about my friends right now working on Gods and Monsters. I mean, that's literally from absolutely nothing. That's like, I'm sure it's hard. I'm sure it's super hard and it's super daunting. Like you said, it's like, well, where do I start and stuff? But like, I think it's even better when it's done.
Yeah, when you have a reference overcoming blank page, it's probably a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, you start like with whatever you want and general landscape and here and that and there. And it's like, they also are not starting from nothing because obviously Greek mythology and stuff and whatever. Like if I had to make a game about Vikings and stuff, which I would love, not about like East Valhalla, like something in Norse mythology or something. Well, there's a big base also, the 9 worlds and Yggdrasil and stuff and whatever. So you still have a base. When you start, like, there's obviously games with nothing, but probably people always start with something.
It's rare. And people need to relate as well. I mean, the consumer out there, the gamer, he needs to be able to relate with the medium, right? And if there's nothing he can relate with, that's why there's no movies or films that are completely off-world.
Only have alien characters, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the best sci-fi series or book series that currently exists, The Expanse, right? Something like that. Even that it is in space, but it's still using the same conflicts that we're currently dealing with on Earth, just in a different, setup. And I mean, this is how you need to create relatability still, so people can identify with the medium.
Yeah, exactly. You base your stuff on something. J.R. Tolkien took like 14 years to create Lord of the Ring, but like. It's just like, he took all the thing from this and that and this and that. And like the dwarves are super like Viking Norse and stuff. And then these guys are this and like, let's take a little bit of Persia whatever, and then this Greek mythology and this and that. So that's how things are built. You base your stuff on something.
Getting inspired, yeah. What made, I don't know if I've asked this already, but what made AC Syndicate your favorite AC to work on compared to all the other ACs?
Because we're the lead studio on it, basically, I think.
Okay.
Once again, it was way like, all of a sudden we have to make the whole game, and then we will have other studios working with us. But we never were the lead studio of the project. So now, like, all the eyes were on us. Like, that Assassin's Creed needs to work because that's us. Like, when you work with Montreal and Assassin's Creed whatever before, you have to do your little thing, and you just hope that the rest of the big machine would be nice.
Yeah.
But now we're the big machine, and we were hoping that the little thing would be nice. So I know it was just bigger, it was harder, it was way more challenging. I love challenge, and I was lead on that, but I was lead on a lead project for the first time. So that was even way more stuff. And I don't know, it was good. It was something big. And for the first time in my career, I had something big, and I was managing a lot of people, doing lots of things. And, it was really a cool thing.
Maybe towards that, because Syndicate is structured similarly, Sven and me often discuss on the podcast and off the podcast what makes a world feel, truly alive and dynamic and that kind of stuff. And I often come with narrative topics like responsive narratives and procedural narratives. What's the secret sauce? How do what are some of the techniques that you would recommend the people out there that they focus their eyes on to make a world truly feel alive?
Well, to make a world truly feel alive now with the tech that we have, it's basically about everything. It's like what the player can do to change the world, and what is like the action reaction. If you do something, does the world react to you? I don't think we're there yet in the industry to a general extent, but like the world are still super static in general.
Yeah.
Even if you take Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something like that, you can't change the world itself. Obviously, you can change little things, and people will react to you or something like that. But I don't know about the magic sauce. It depends on the game you're making, but it's at least when I was an AC, it was that, you're not alone in the world, you're a part of it. People, whatever, react to you. You can just do whatever you want whenever you want, and it's all the little things, like having a person walking down the street going to buy apples or whatever. It's all these little things that feel alive. And then if you can have weather system or day-night cycle or these things basically that feel more alive, that's the sauce. But if you take Breath of the Wild. It's not as filled with Assassin's Creed or anything, but that's an amazing world that they created. It still feel alive because there's a couple of systemic stuff, you set grass on fire, it burns, creates smoke, whatever. It's all these little things that games add now that I think the more you can add into your game that are still relevant, adding stuff for adding stuff is kind of meh. But if you can add stuff like these, that's great. That's how your world will be alive. You could not even have to write a single line of dialogue or story or anything to have a world alive. It's not. It's absolutely, for me, it's not related. The story comes on top, and then do whatever in the world basically.
Do you think one can go too far? If I think of something like, let's say we're in Red Dead Redemption and there's this house and there's a family living in that house, and you walk past and I don't know, you kill someone and this body decomposes. How does it called when the body is
decompose? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, decomposes on top of their watering thing that they have in the ground. So now the entire family dies and they can't give you any quests anymore. Is that too much because you can't directly see the correlance between those two?
For me, it's if you can do that in the game, it has to be a system that can be learned and teach and used. That's the thing, right? We play game because real life suck in general. So I guess some people want to play games that are exactly like real life, but for me, yes, that would be a bit too much probably. But if I go into a room like in Zelda and then I smash the pots, I expect the owner to kick my ass out, or he will try and then I will kill the owner. Like I don't know, you do that in Skyrim, I guess. You just go in, you steal the stuff, person mad, and then start beating you, and then you just For me, that would be like the next step on this specific example. For example, is like not black and white A B. It's like get in, steal stuff, person attack me. Like I'm in like full plate armor, I'm like level 90. There's this little lady right there that I just stole her stuff, and then she starts beating my ass. Like there's this layer of like, yeah, maybe even if he stole my stuff, I would probably just go get some guards because I can't kick his
out
ass.
somewhere and be afraid and get some guards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I get there and sing like I don't know, like the other room, and then I steal stuff, and then there's another lady, and then she beat the shit out of me because she's level 99 or whatever. That's fine, but yeah, something like that. So yeah, that's like decomposing body and polluting water and stuff. Like if it's a system, cool. I mean, you can even use it in the game, but if it's not, it's not really useful, I guess.
So as long as there's like not more than 1 or 2 steps between your action and whatever happens from it, and you are still as a player able to understand why things are happening because of your actions, then it's not too far.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like we don't want to create like what I call the absolute design masturbation. It's like you don't want the design to be bigger than the execution.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you don't want to, like it's like I don't know. You can pollute water if you put dead body in it. Okay, cool. Okay, that's a system, but you don't want to have like I don't know, like the body has to be under the sun for this amount of time because decomposing faster, and then the water needs to be polluted, and then the people need to drink water. But then, does the people have to have an immune system? Or are they affected by that? Is it happening all the time? Is like that's a bit too complicated.
Welcome to Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay. It's okay. There's people who love that thing, and that's fine, But you just have, for me, it has to be like a design choice that has been thought about.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Then you will have the players you want to have who will be like, oh, yeah, man. So I will do that and this, and then this person will die, and then this father would be running, and then this thing, and then, freaking conspiracy theory or something. And then, like, that's fine. But, like, it was thought about, basically.
And they're not life simulations, right? We're creating playful experiences. They still have to be games somewhere and not only simulations.
Yes, and if you want simulation, well, let's go play a simulation game, and that's fine. That's okay.
I always love it when like not only the characters and the story changes, but also like the environments as well. I remember playing Gothic 1 back in the day, where you had like this main location of the Mine Valley, and then in the second part you were able to go back to that, but that place completely changed, and I was like such a cool, mind-blowing moment. And I always love like revisiting locations that I've seen before, but they changed over time and stuff like that. So that would be cool if that would be more in the one game itself. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 actually does that sometimes when you have these time skips between the cities and then stuff evolves. But this is something that makes the world feel alive to me.
For me, that's the next step. Next step of like world, like basically you want to have the world reacting to you, but you need to be. Right now we have game that the world reacts to you, but you can't really change the world itself. And I think I had a discussion on Twitter a couple of months ago about that. And for me, I think that's the next step. Like you should be able to really change it or something like that or whatever. Like not full on Minecraft or anything, but like the game from what's the name of the company? The French company. My friend Matt is working there now. Nova Quark, I think. Dual Universe. That's like, No Man's Sky or something like that. Like you literally can change the whole thing. And that's it, And that's cool because it can affect like the world, and then you come back later and there's the tower you just build there. It's like, yeah, I'm the one who built that thing. And I think that's where they're going with Dual Universe, which is super interesting for me. I'm not really into a spaceship guy and then Like they are really deep into their design. Like when you build your spaceship, you can you can even choose the screw that you have in it. It's like that's a little bit too much detail. But the fact that you can change the world there and it's changed forever. I think that's basically the next step in open world game that we need to sort of achieve, I think, in the industry.
The question is, should you be able to even, right? If you think about when have you in real life ever changed the world significantly during your lifetime? Probably maximum a handful of times, maybe not at all, right?
I think I planted a tree once.
There we go. We've done some terraforming. But the thing
exactly.
But then we play a grounded experience like Red Dead Redemption or anything of the like, right? Then we still have to. Has to be the suspension of disbelief. Yes, you should be able to do things and be able to affect things, but not like too crazily in a realistic setting.
No, exactly. If it's a game has like Red Dead or anything that is like fairly cool in narrative things and stuff. Like for me as I'm really into open world now, and that's why I probably love Terraria so much in these games. But like, it's that's the thing that I like, because that's the thing I can't do in real life. I can't just go anywhere and build a freaking castle. I can't do that. Well, I could, but I need to buy the land, and then it would be so expensive and stuff. But it's cool. Like, you create all these things by yourself, and then it's there. And then if it's a multiplayer game, that's cool, because I don't know, like, people see your castle now, and then I don't know, they hang around there with you and whatever. So that's the thing. Like, you can't do that in real life. So cool, let's do that in games instead.
Yes, I feel you. There was another question that I had. There's actually one that Sven and me were thinking about as well, especially when Max was in the podcast, because he likes to talk about combat and encounter design. You mentioned in one of your games that you also designed the combat for the levels, right? For Prince of Persia, I think that was it. Like, where's the line? What is combat design, X level design?
Well, I mean, it all depends on the game. Like, I've done level design at Larian, and I was not doing combat design. But and on Prince of Persia, basically, we had it's so far in my memory, but I was really big into that Nintendo approach of like, you teach, and then you learn, and then you master, and then you put a twist on it and stuff. And it was all the combat in the game, because I've done pretty much all of them. That was the same thing. You introduce an enemy in a closed environment, you can toy with it and whatever. After that, you have like two, and then after that, they're on different position or something like this. So obviously, it's really related to level design. They're really intertwined with each other. You can't have you can have just an open arena with nothing, and then you have a combat there. Yeah. Can work in some games, like, I don't know, like any hack and slash. I don't think
Mordhau, Chivalry, games like that.
Yeah,
as well.
but like also the like Diablo. I don't think the combat and level design is really important there. It's just go there, you just obliterate everyone, or you get obliterated, and that's it. But in a game like Prince of Persia or anything like where the combat is important, then you need a combat arena, basically. So they're really intertwined, and that's how I was approaching it. I haven't read the book from Max, but that was my take on it, basically, back in the days, because it was basically almost the only experience I had with combat design, because after that we went to Assassin's Creed, and it was like, it was not as important anymore. Obviously, we were still thinking about it, like, placing the guards in different direction. When we arrive from here, we'll look at that direction, or the patrol path and everything. So it's still part of combat design, I would say. As level design, combat design, we're talking about game design, combat system. But we still had that thing. And then we moved further into world design, and then I stopped placing guard in any way possible. I've done a little bit on Battlefield 5 and when I was in the prologue, and I was still doing the same thing, but like with more stuff that I've learned, because since it was a shooter, we're talking more about like, the no man's land and stuff, and line of fire and all these things. And obviously I didn't have any idea of that when I was on Prince of Persia. This is really important.
Was also more or less in the middle or semi-beginning of your career, right? So you're
Yes.
current experience level is way higher than it was back then as well.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not exactly sure I know that much more, but I don't know. No, I'm just directing anyway. I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling my guys to do their stuff.
You're inspiring that they are working with you on a common goal, right?
Exactly. That's my job. My job is to as a good manager, I need to just be surrounded by amazing people that will do amazing stuff.
I mean, that's all of our goals. We want to be surrounded by people who are better than us at everything, right? So we can learn.
Yes, and right now it's really the case. I'm like, wow, I'm happy I'm not the one who has to do that.
So you're talented and humble. That's how it should be, Jeff. Wonderful.
I don't know about talented, but humble, I can say yes. But is it humble to say that you're humble? Is it breaking it?
That's a good question. Sven, did you still have any questions? Because we're nearing the end of the episode.
I actually have one, which I kind of forgot halfway through because we moved on to other topics. But in the beginning, you were talking like engaging with people on Twitter when you are working on a certain game. Did you feel like at some point some kind of how do I say it? Okay, first one would be is from the company side somebody telling you, okay, you shouldn't engage as much, or is that completely something you can do on your own? And the second one would be like, did you ever regret any engagement with somebody who was maybe too toxic or something like that? Because I guess in a super passionate fandom that can happen.
Yes to the first and yes to the second. But yes, normally that's the thing. When I was at Ubisoft back in the days, there was no social media or anything. I would have loved to be able to interact with people, but I think we didn't have the right to do so. I remember going with a couple of friends in like Prince of Persia forums and stuff and writing, but it was not like we were not allowed to say that we were dev and stuff. But obviously it changed. I think like Blizzard were really into community and stuff when it really started, for me at least, when I discovered it was a thing. And then all the companies I think came on with like community manager and this thing. Like, well, back then that work didn't exist at all. What was a community manager? It was but it's like these guys are paid to interact with the community. But the thing is, obviously, the community love interacting with community manager, but I think they also really love interacting with the devs. So it's like, it depends on the company, if you can or not. Basically, I started interacting a lot with the community when I started at DICE. And it was pretty free. Obviously, it was like, it's Sweden. So it's like, just don't be an ass, I guess. So it was pretty cool. But then, people kept on and BF5 and stuff. And then we had some backlash and everything. And then more devs started interacting with people. And then at some point, like, it was too fluid. And then some stuff was said. And then people got not really reprimanded. But then the community got upset. And then all these things. And then, it's important. Like, it's not like interacting with the community doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're a community manager. It's a full-fledged job that you need you need the training into doing that and stuff. And there's a lot of dev who's just like, yeah, I'm a dev. There's so many devs on Twitter right now, so they just interact with the community and things, and me included. But it's not super easy, and I've learned it the hard way when I was in Battlefield 5 because Jesus, wow, you get tagged, and it's like gamers don't know. They're just like, oh, there's a dev. And the amount of stuff I got tagged on, like, hey, dude, there's a bug here. Can you fix the gun and stuff? Like, dude, like, at some point I was trying, like, when you have a fire and stuff, and oh yeah, I will try my best to fix the thing, and then you send that you just forward that to the guy, the team, and stuff, and just you realize that you're working 24/7 because you're at your place, and then you're on Twitter, and then you're working basically.
Yeah.
And it was shit. And at some point, I was just answering, sorry, man, I just make map. Like, because that was it, like, And he was like, oh, yeah, but there's a thing in that map. It's like, yeah, sorry, don't work on that map. It's just like, since people first, gamers don't know how video games are made for the vast majority. And they just like, oh, I have a direct line of contact with someone working in the game. So I will push my point. So either it's a bug, either it's like, hey, your game is shit. Or like, dude, man, your work sucks. Or like, oh, it's so good. And all the beautiful compliment and things, and then you get tagged on anything, and people taking screenshots and things. This part is cool. This part is really cool, And it's like I still love it, and the game I'm working on, I hope it will be released one day, and I will be able to interact with the community, because it's like that's the good part. Like I never thought one day that someone would write to me after I followed them, dude, you made my day. You're following me on Twitter. Like Jesus, I'm just a normal guy. There's nothing amazing about me. I'm just a dude, And it's just like I would have never thought 15 years ago, like, oh wow, I will make someone day because I clicked on the follow button on Twitter, That's the power of that thing, I guess. Like, oh my God, this game dev following me now. It's crazy. It's like
I feel attached to the development.
Yeah, I don't know if I would that would be cool if Dwayne Johnson would follow me on Twitter, but making my day, like people oh my God, this guy liked my tweet.
I'm in your camp. I feel you. I'm also not like a celebrity, crushing on celebrities or that kind of stuff. But I do, I'm even if you're not someone who's into this lifestyle of following people, you can still admire and respect people's work, right? And yes, I think especially then when you post about a game and then one of the developers that whose work you respect so much engages on it, that's of course a nice boost of morale for that day. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's hard to you were talking Sven earlier about the toxicity and stuff, and when I was in Battlefield 5, it was hard. At some point, I just wanted to go on Reddit and say to everyone fuck, all that crazy shit. I was like, no, you don't get it. These people who just assume things and whatever. It happens on all the games, Same thing. I saw it on Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed. It's the same thing. And you it's hard to just not go there and put fuel on the fire, even though you are absolutely 100% right, because you work on that freaking game, obviously. Just don't do it. And it's hard. It's hard to not do it. Dealing with all the beautiful things. Oh my God, you made my favorite game ever. And oh my God, Jeff, you're so cool. And whatever. Thanks for doing this and this and that. And that's cool. That's easy. That's the easy part, which is great.
I would just want to say that it can, of course, go both ways, and that you, I guess, also need to have a thick skin when you're interacting with communities. Because I often feel because Sam and I always watch some conferences and reveal streams together, and if you look at comment sections in the live videos, that always feels what the hell is going on there? And I feel if I worked on one of those games and then I would also be watching that, of course I would be super interested in seeing, okay, what's the live reaction? But then you have everyone kind of going nuts about it in a sometimes bad way that must be super demotivating, or in a sense like a big downer.
Yes, absolutely. I can just imagine the people right now when all the devs who worked on the new not Harry Potter movie, but Hogwarts Legacy. They were probably so goddamn happy. They worked on that for so many years, and they released the game, and now there's this giant backlash happening, and it's not even about the game. And it's God damn it, we worked on that, and I absolutely understand why there's the backlash. But I'm just thinking about the devs, and I'm fuck. They spend so much time, and
they just want to make a great game.
Yeah, they just want to. And I'm sure it's an amazing game. It doesn't change anything for that part, but it's just so sad. I can just imagine them reacting right now, not reacting right now with what's happening, because they can't. Obviously, that would put so much fire. So it's that's the sad part of social media.
All right, then I think we're at the end. Jeff, if you have you want to greet your family, if you want to promote a product, if you want to push anything, go ahead.
Introduce the wooden calf toy line.
No, I was not prepared for that. I don't know. Support your game dev. Support minorities in the industry. Support unrepresented game dev. Do that. It's important.
Yes.
There's too much white stuff. We have enough white. So yeah. That's the only thing I could say.
Buy Jeff's new game when it's announced at some point in the next 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. If it's ever announced, I don't know. That's the thing. Game get cancelled. I have no idea. We'll see in the future.
Could happen.
Yeah, I'm not a guy I work at Ubisoft. I will not shout out like, "Hey, buy my game." I'm not an indie dev, you know. It doesn't change anything.
My heart.
Exactly.
Buy my game. All right. Then thank you very much for coming on. This was really a pleasure. Every second was enjoyable.
Agreed.
And also thank you to everyone out there who's listening to us ramble on about game dev. Thank you for making us part of your weekly routine. And Jeff, where can people find you on social media?
On my Twitter, GFG Nord and GFG Nord, and that's it. Like, that's my Twitter. Just find me there. I guess if you want to follow me and see whatever stuff I post and now on my social media.
Sounds great. Yeah, if you want to follow the podcast, you can head to Twitter, of course, and search for Idiots Industry, or on Instagram at Industry Idiots, or just in your favorite podcast app, tap on the episode, and then you'll have all the links right there. Jeff's link as well. So that's that.
All right, then. Thank you very much. And as always, bye.
Bye.
Bye.